Hey folks, Quill18 here with an announcement that we're going to have a special stream today. If you've been following me on Twitter, you already know about that. Since I am home, unexpectedly, I am going to be participating in the launch of the new Path of Exile League, the new sort of expansion for Path of Exile. It's patch 2.5 and the new Breach League. We are going to be starting completely from scratch. This is a brand new league. Everyone's going to start with like level 1 characters and absolutely nothing in their stash, which is always exciting. The leagues in Path of Exile go for 3 or 4 months, something like that. They all introduce some new quirky feature, and with that, I have to decide what kind of character I'm going to be playing. So I'm coming to you guys to poll what we should do. Of course, we just had a big long run as a summoner witch. Also, I'm playing a archer with like a ranger archer with Briarstone. So I would like to do something quite different. And of course that means I'm going to be playing Blade Fury Shadow. No, I'm kidding. Blade Fury is an excellent new skill that was introduced, well, I guess in 2.42, but basically it's going to be 2.5. This new Breach League that's coming up is going to be the first real opportunity to use that completely from scratch. And a lot of people are going to be using it because it's very cool, very exciting. It's new, exciting, shiny, very, very, very powerful. And don't get me wrong, I want to play that at some point, but because so many people are going to be playing it, there's going to be a real shortage on the trading market for the items that are very good for that kind of build. So I want to go in a different direction. Now, luckily for me, because I haven't played that much Path of Exile, a lot of stuff still feels very, very new to me, so I don't actually have to play the latest shiny skill. And I want to go in a different direction. I don't want to go with another sort of like minion totem-based kind of thing. I want someone who's ideally a little bit more active and a little bit more direct, you know, just getting in the thick of things and doing damage much more directly. Also, because this is a new league and we have nothing in the stash, it is important that it is a build that is very sort of cheap and easy to get started. You don't need a bunch of established items before you go in there. Now, of course, that minion summoner, the SRS witch that I played in the last league, would be an excellent version of that. And in fact, the SRS skill has been changed, like semi-nerfed, but maybe buffed in other ways for this league. Instead of having a maximum of 50 skulls, which was what it was before, it now caps at only 20 skulls, but each skull does more damage. Which means that it's possible it won't scale quite as well in the late game, but it should actually be a lot better early on. Should be an excellent leveling skill if you're interested in looking into that. It also means you don't have to emphasize cast speed the same way, which opens up a little bit more flexibility. So, but I'm not going to be playing another SRS character. I have here 2 characters, and I want your help to help me decide which one of these 2 we should be playing, which one of them would be most fun. So on the left, contender number 1, we have a Righteous Fire Chieftain. Righteous Fire is a very, very interesting skill. You cast it, it sets you on fire, and you burn for damage equal to 90% of your maximum life every second. Now, if you're like thinking about it and like doing the math, you're like, wait a minute, doesn't that mean like I die after just over a second? If it's doing 90% of my max life every second, doesn't it just kill me after a little over a second? More or less. It actually does automatically turn itself off when you hit 1 hit point, so it won't kill you, but still, what's the point of a spell that brings you down to 1 hit point after a second? Well, the other thing it does is while it's burning you, it's also burning everyone around you, and it does damage based on your life. So the more life you have, the more damage you do in this AoE around you. And there are ways to mitigate the damage, the health loss, because there's 2 things that you can do. First of all, it's doing 90% of your max life in burning damage every second, but it is mitigated by fire resistance, which means normally your fire resistance can get up to 75% fire resist. So now you're taking, whatever the math is, 75% of 90% of your max hit points every second. So now you're going to live for 3 or 4 seconds or something like that just by itself. So that's thing 1. Thing 2, though, is there's a lot of ways to get substantial amount of life regeneration, including life regeneration that is a percentage of your hit pool. So now all of a sudden, while you're taking this burning damage, you're also regenerating life. Now, can you regenerate enough life to offset the burning with 75% fire resist? Probably not, but then you factor in there's a few other ways to actually increase your fire resistance beyond the normal maximum of 75%. For example, Rise of the Phoenix is a shield that increases your maximum fire resistance. There's a few other things. There are flasks. There's a variety of things that can increase your maximum fire resistance to the point where you can easily out-regenerate the damage that Righteous Fire is doing to you. So you're no longer taking any damage. I mean, if you get hit, then you still take some damage there, but you're no longer constantly losing health, and in fact, you regenerate it quite quickly despite being on fire. And this is all extremely, extremely cool, and you start killing enemies just by standing near them. Now, what are the downsides? Well, first of all, you can't really use that ability itself until we hit about level 65. And the reason for that is level 65 is when you can use the Rise of the Phoenix shield, which is one of the key parts of making this build work, but that's not necessarily the only one. But basically, until level 65, we'd basically be playing with different spells, which we may or may not be optimized for, and might require itemization that is different from what our final build will be. So there'll be sort of 65 levels is a long, long time during which we're not actually playing our build. So is that going to be interesting or not? I don't know. We'll probably use things like, we'll either use, what's it called? There's a spell where you summon down a bunch of fireballs in an area. That's one. We might use Fire Blast. That's another possibility. We might use Flame Totems. That's another. We might use a combination of those things. We'll still be doing a lot of fire-themed damage, I think, which is going to be really appropriate. But it's going to be very different than what our final build effectively will be. We could also use Scorching Ray. I don't think we'll be well built to take good advantage of Scorching Ray, but the tie-in to that is when we do start using Righteous Fire, we actually might still use some Scorching Ray at that point. Scorching Ray is not going to do much damage, but what it does do is lower fire resistance of people that you hit with it, so it can sort of combo with Righteous Fire. But yes, it does have slightly funky item needs. Not only does it need a few sort of key items to make the build work, they're not very expensive, but you do need a few items to make the build work. In addition to that, you need to get your items really optimized for maximum life and that sort of thing, because you need a health pool that's going to be like 6, 7, 8,000 health to start with, and quite, and really to hit the peak effectiveness of this build, you really need to be sitting at over 10,000 hit points, really, to make this thing really, really rock. So you need items that have all the life all the time. So yes, slightly funky item needs, so that can be a little bit tricky, especially in the new league. And while it is cool that we kill enemies just by standing near them, we also kill enemies just by standing near them. It's not a very active build. Again, maybe ignoring the Scorching Ray. We mostly just sort of like charge forward with either like a Cyclone or a Shield Charge or something like that to get in the middle of things, and then we just sort of stand there as things burn a little bit. So it doesn't feel very direct. On the other hand, you're going toe-to-toe with absolutely everything. You're in the thick of things all the time and just obliterating people by your mere presence, which is kind of cool and badass. Option number 2 is a Critical Strike Arc Inquisitor. So Arc is a lightning spell that chains from person to person to person, so it arcs between them. So it's a really cool like bolt of lightning that like bounces all over the map in a really, really cool way. It's a very direct spell casting class. We are going to be actively casting spells at people and pew-pewing and doing a bunch of damage that way. The crit is important because the lightning damage can inflict a status condition on your opponents called Shocked. That can happen, like you have sort of base chance to shock all the time, and especially depending on your build, you can get more and more things that give you a higher percentage chance to shock, or if you crit, you're guaranteed to inflict shock. And shock makes them take, I think that things take 20% more damage from everything while they're shocked. So there's that. There's a few other combos that can get like sort of, things can keep sort of triggering themselves. For example, there's a Herald of Thunder spell. It's an aura that you have on yourself that when you kill a shocked enemy, it triggers Herald of Lightning to basically continuously cast down lightning bolts around you that do more damage. Plus, you can link that with a curse on hit. So when the Herald of Thunder lightning bolts all around you constantly, it's also constantly cursing them with things that will give you these charges to make you go faster and hit for more damage. And so you got all these sort of like cool synergistic lightning combos going on there. And much later on, we could even look into switching things up a bit, because you can get I think it's a ring that changes 50% of your lightning damage into cold damage, and when you crit with a cold spell, you start to freeze people. There's freezes, there's chills, there's all sorts of these effects, which all of a sudden makes it so that A, we're not as vulnerable to like someone being resistant to a single element, but B, it actually makes the build a lot more defensive because we're slowing everyone down while we're also killing them, which is really cool. Also needs no special gears whatsoever. You know, that one unique ring to switch half your lightning into cold is very cool, and we'll see about picking that up at some point, but we don't need that. We should do plenty of damage. We're just going to be looking for rares with like extra spell damage, extra crit, extra cast speed, and of course, life and energy shield. We probably won't go for a Chaos Inoculation build in as our first character because these builds are very popular right now, and it might be hard to start a character and really get a lot of gear for that. Probably our follow-up character. Whatever we do second, whoop, I just hit the mic, sorry. Whatever we do second will probably be a Chaos Inoculation build. Maybe we'll go Blade Flurry Chaos Inoculation once the league is a little bit more mature. There's more items out there for us to buy, plus we'll probably have collected some items along the way. So the downside of this crit Arc Inquisitor build, by the way, also being the Inquisitor means we can do Monty Python jokes and things not being expected jokes and all kind of cool stuff like that. The downside to it is we don't get to set ourselves on fire and have that be the basis of our build. So I'm really stumped. I had assumed I would go with crit Arc Inquisitor, and almost certainly this will level up a lot faster and a lot easier, because Righteous Fire Chieftain will be a little awkward until, again, level 65, and even at that point, the itemization might be a little bit tricksy. So I'm leaning towards the idea of starting with the crit Arc Inquisitor, at the very least, to just get some initial gear and currency and set us up for trading, and then play it by ear. If we decide that this is no fun or boring, maybe I'll start a Righteous Fire, and I'll start like leveling this up in the background. Actually, that might be the other thing I do, is what if I don't even necessarily level up the Fire Chieftain on stream? I just play him in my downtime, and then at some point when I get to level 65 and I get my items in place, then I can make some videos about this guy when he's got his cool build. That might work. Anyway, there's going to be a link down below. You can click to vote. The live stream starts at 3 p.m. Eastern time, which is when the Breach League starts. When there's a start of a new league, there's always a possibility that the servers get a bit hammered, and you know there could be some slowdowns there. We'll see how it goes. So, but at 3 p.m. Eastern is when the league starts, and we can start playing. As usual, I'll start the pre-stream about 30 minutes ahead of time. We'll probably do some chit-chat either in the chat, or I'll even, I don't know, turn on the camera and do some talking at that point, talking about the builds and different things like that. I will be playing single player, but, you know, hopefully a lot of you guys will be playing alongside me, and that'll be quite cool. And yeah, so come on out for that. It's going to be a hoot. We're going to have a great time. Do vote. So down below, there's going to be a link to a straw poll where you can vote as to which build you would prefer to see me play on today's stream. Again, it doesn't, you know, if I do one on today's stream, doesn't mean I can't do the other one a different time or something like that. There'll be a countdown timer and a link to, well, twitch.tv/Quillyteen over there. So that'll be today's stream. Tomorrow, I think, is still going to be a City Skyline stream, by the way. So if you're looking forward to that, that should be unchanged. But, so this is just an extra bonus stream. So coming out to that, it'll be a hoot, and vote. See you there.